All right, class, welcome. We all use dictionaries, right? On our shelves, on our phones. But have you ever stopped to think about how they're actually put together? Well, today we're going to dive into exactly that, the science of lexicography. Now, this is going to be super important for your upcoming test, so let's jump right in. So let's start with a really fundamental question, one that gets to the heart of all this. Who gets to decide which words are real words and which ones aren't? I mean, think about it. There's no way a dictionary can include every single word people use. Not even the giant Oxford English Dictionary can do that. So somewhere, a person, a lexicographer, has to make a call. They're the ones deciding what gets in and what gets left out.
And that whole process, that science of building dictionaries, well, that's called lexicography. And this definition right here, this is one you'll definitely want to have down. It's all about the principles behind choosing words, defining them, and putting them in some kind of order. You can almost think of it as the instruction manual for creating a dictionary.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the science itself. Then, we'll look at how dictionaries are built for different kinds of people. After that, we'll get into classifying them by their content and how they handle time. Then we'll zoom way in to decode a single dictionary entry. And finally, we'll talk about the art of arranging all those words.
All right, let's kick things off with section 1, the science of dictionaries. So, what does a lexicographer actually do all day? What are the big questions they're trying to solve?
Well, their work pretty much boils down to these 5 key things. First up is selection, which words make the cut. Then there's arrangement. How do you organize everything? Third is explanation. How do you write a clear, accurate definition? Fourth is the medium. Is this going to be a big, heavy book, or is it an app on your phone? And finally, and this one is so important, updating the content. Because language never, ever stands still, right? It's always changing. Okay, on to our second section. It is so important to get this. Not all dictionaries are made the same. They're not a one-size-fits-all deal. They are tools, and they're designed for very specific users and specific jobs. So let's look at how they're classified by their purpose and, well, just how big they are. And right here, we see one of the biggest splits in how dictionaries are designed. On one hand, you've got your general-purpose dictionaries. These are for native speakers. They kind of assume you already have an intuition for the language. But then you have learners' dictionaries, and these are a whole different beast. They're built from scratch for people learning the language, often with way simpler definitions and lots of examples. This distinction is absolutely crucial, so make a note of it. And of course, besides purpose, there's size. It's pretty straightforward. The bigger the dictionary, the more stuff it's got inside. You've got your massive desk dictionaries, like the full OED. They're the most comprehensive. Then you step down to a concise version, which is abridged. And finally, you have the tiny pocket dictionary, which is really just for checking a spelling or a quick meaning when you're out and about. Basically, with each step down, you trade detail for portability. All right, let's move on. So beyond who it's for and how big it is, we also classify dictionaries by the kind of information they hold and their relationship with time. And this is where we get into some really fascinating ideas. So here's a really important distinction to make. What's the difference between an encyclopedia and a dictionary? An encyclopedia explains the facts about the world. It tells you about the city of Paris, the history, the landmarks, the whole deal. A language dictionary, on the other hand, tells you about the word Paris, how to pronounce it, that it's a proper noun, how you use it in a sentence. One is about things, the other is about words. Now, this next concept is a big one, so really tune in for this. We can also classify dictionaries by how they deal with time. A diachronic dictionary studies language through time. It's like a movie of a word's life, tracking it from its birth through all its changes. On the flip side, a synchronic dictionary is like a snapshot. It captures the language at one specific moment, freezing it in time, whether that's right now or some point in the past. And the most famous diachronic dictionary, the absolute king of them all, is the Oxford English Dictionary. The OED is amazing because it doesn't just give you a definition. It gives you the full biography of a word, tracing its history all the way back. And this timeline just shows you what a monumental task it was, and still is. They started this thing way back in 1857. It took over 40 years just to finish the first edition. And look at its evolution, from a huge 20-volume set of books to a CD-ROM in the 90s, and now to a constantly updated online resource. It's a living, breathing project that's always a work in progress. Okay, let's switch gears. We've been looking at the big picture, at whole dictionaries. Now, we're going to zoom all the way in to the fundamental building block of any dictionary, the individual entry for a single word. So, what information is actually crammed inside one of those entries? You might just think it's the spelling and the meaning, but oh no, it's so much more than that. A really well-made entry is like a dense little data file on a word.
And this right here is a really critical list for your revision. A single entry can cover all of this. You've got phonetic information, that's how to pronounce it, morphological info, like its plural form, syntactic info tells you its grammar, is it a verb, a noun. Then you've got semantic, which is the definition itself. But it goes on. Sociolinguistic info tells you if it's slang or formal. Etymological tells you its life story, spelling, context. It's all in there.
So let's take a look at a real example to see how this all works in practice. Here's part of an entry for the word discriminate. Now, I know it looks a little dense and full of weird abbreviations, but all that information we just talked about is packed right in there.
So let's break it down. First, you see the stuff in parentheses? That's the phonology. It tells you exactly how to pronounce it. Then you have VB for verb and insure for intransitive. That's the syntax. The numbered parts, 1 and 2, give you the different definitions. That's the semantics. And see how they even list related forms like the adverb? That's morphology. It's an incredible amount of data in just a tiny bit of text.
All right, we've made it to our last section, the art of arrangement. Now that you've got all these entries, how do you actually organize the dictionary? And believe it or not, it's not always as simple as just going from A to Z.
And this leads us to a key technical term, nesting. Nesting is just what it sounds like. It's when you tuck a related word, like a derivative, inside the main entry for the root word. So, for example, instead of giving folksiness its very own entry, it might just be listed at the end of the entry for folksy. This saves space, and it also shows how words are related to each other. And this really highlights a huge philosophical choice that dictionary makers have to face. What's more important? On one hand, you have strict alphabetical order. It's fantastic if you know the word you're looking for, super easy to find, but it completely separates words that are related, like mind and mental. On the other hand, you have a thematic arrangement, like in a thesaurus, which groups words by meaning. This is great for exploring ideas, but terrible if you just want to look one specific word up. It's a classic trade-off.
So here's the crucial point, and I really want you to get this. A dictionary's arrangement isn't just a list. It is an argument. It's making a claim about how language is structured and what's most important to the user. So to wrap everything up, I'll leave you with this final question to think about. In our modern digital world, with search bars and hyperlinks, does that old trade-off between alphabetical order and thematic connections even matter anymore? Could you design a digital dictionary that gives you the best of both, or maybe something completely different? Just some food for thought. All right, that's it for today. Good luck with your studies.